Whether you're on the field, behind home plate, or up in the nosebleeds, there's definitely something special about the grass at a Major League Baseball stadium. In this video, I want to show you some step-by-step guides that you can use in your yard to make your turf look like a Major League Baseball field. Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Warren, and you're watching The Plant Doctor. Let's get started. So before we get into the how to cut the grass and the chemicals we apply and when we apply them and how much to water, all of those things that we need to know in order to have beautiful turf like this, I kind of want to give you some background here of how I have this knowledge and how I've kind of accumulated this over the years. My very first job in the green industry, I was 18, 19 years old. I worked at a golf course in Northwest Georgia called Stonebridge Golf Club, and the superintendent there, his name was Randy Mangum. His brother has been the field manager for the Atlanta Braves for 20 or 30 years. His name's Ed Mangum. And I used to pick Randy's brain all the time, not only about the golf course, but hey, what's going on at the time it was Turner Field, now they're at Truist Park. So the turfs that we're talking about is going to be more Bermuda, zoysia. If you're looking at fescue turfs, this video is probably not going to apply to you as much, but if you want beautiful zoysia, beautiful Bermuda that looks like an MLB ballpark, this video is going to help you out. Also, somebody else that has passed on some really good knowledge to me, a dear friend of mine, is now the chemical supplier for Truist Park, and I'm constantly texting him, hey, what are they doing? What did they order? And so between knowing the Mangums and knowing the distributor for the chemicals to Truist Park, I've got a pretty good idea of what's going on there, and I'm going to try to share that knowledge with you. Also, I'm going to give you some cost-saving tips because what they do is very expensive, but if you're just an average homeowner that wants your turf to look like an MLB stadium, there's some things that we can do a little bit differently that's going to save you some money. Let's get started. So the first thing we need to talk about in terms of having a beautiful MLB-worthy turf is weed suppression and weed control. And there's a couple of different products here I have in front of me. Most MLB ballparks, they're going to use something called Spectacle Flow. The active in this is indaziflam. This is expensive. This bottle I think runs around 200 bucks and it's 18 ounces. However, you put this out at a rate, a max annual rate of 0.25 ounces per thousand. Most of your stadiums are going to be doing this. In the month of October, they're going to put this out at 0.1 ounces per thousand. They're going to do a split application. And then in February, we're going to do 0.1 ounces per thousand again. Mathematically per thousand, if you do the math on it, it's not that bad. It's just that initial sticker cost of like 200 bucks for this. It's really expensive on that end. Cheaper alternatives in the fall, in that October pre-emergent period, use this product. This is Simazine. So Simazine, I believe we're putting this out at about 1 ounce per thousand. And then in the spring, we're going to follow up with another pre-emergent. I've got two here. I prefer prodiamine. So prodiamine here again, we're going to put this out at about 1 ounce per thousand in this around the month of February. I'm usually shooting for around February 15th. I'm in zone 8A. If you're in zone 9, zone 10, you're going to do that a little bit earlier, probably the first week of February. If you're in zone 7 or zone 6, you're going to do that a little bit later, closer to March. So you can go Simazine October and February. You can go prodiamine. Another good spring pre-emergent, although it doesn't quite have the control that prodiamine does, but it is a little bit cheaper, is this one right here in the yellow. This is pendimethalin. And pendimethalin, I have to look at the label, but I believe it's also around 1 ounce per thousand on your application right there. So those are 4 pre-emergents that you can use on your zoysia or Bermuda that's going to help you keep those weeds out of your turf. While we're on the topic of chemicals, let's go ahead and talk about our fertilizer applications that we're using throughout the year. I use 2 different types of fertilizer on my turf. We have a fertilizer prill application that we use, but also use a liquid feed throughout the season as well. Let's talk about the prills first. So the first prill that I use is from Dakota. This is a smart fertilizer. It's a 90-day slow release prill. It's a 15-5-15. And this is specifically designed for grasses that are cut really short. This is designed for golf course greens, MLB baseball stadiums. And if you look right here, you can see how small these prills are. The prills are small because if you think about it, you don't want to be putting on big chunky prills. If those are on the green, the ball's going to go everywhere. And even in baseball, if you got big chunky prills everywhere, the baseball may hit one and bounce funny. So you want really small prills. Our friends over at Dakota have been great to us this year. And so this product is good for early spring applications. So this is good for about 90 days. I'm putting this out around April 15th, give or take. So as my grass greens up here in zone 8A, that's usually mid-April. It could be early April if we have a warm spring. I'm going to put this out at a rate of about 2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. In the month of June, I'm going to make a second fertilizer prill application. Here again, this is a 90-day prill. This particular bag is a 22011, so it's got high nitrogen. But what I'm really after when we get into June and July is to just keep the grass green. I'm not trying to push just a ton of growth out here. If I was at an MLB baseball stadium and the turf was constantly getting tore up, yeah, we're going to put down a ton of nitrogen. But we're good with the average residential lot. You're good with some product like this. What we're really after are the micronutrients in June. So we want to put down something that has iron, and we want to put something down that has manganese in it, and this has both of those. It's 3% iron, 3% manganese. So you want somewhere in that 2 to 5% range for both of those. That's going to help your grass stay dark green throughout the summer. As other people's lawns start to get a light green and maybe even try to go dormant a little bit, if you're putting down iron and manganese on your yard throughout the summer, it's going to stay dark green and you're going to be able to stripe it up a whole lot better. So I mentioned we also do a liquid application of fertilizer. I'm doing this liquid application of fertilizer once every 2 weeks. So for example, if I do it on Monday the 1st, I'm going to do it again on Monday the 15th, and then at the end of the month on Monday the 30th. So I'm just on a 2-week rotation with this. And what am I putting out? It really doesn't matter much about the name brand. What we're looking for here is the chemicals that are in the product. This is Extreme Green 16, and what I'm after here is the iron and manganese again, just like we had in our slow release prill that we put out in June. I start my liquid fertilizer regimen about the same time, early June, once everything has fully greened up and it's ripping, and I'm mowing about once every 5 days. This is going to have 16% iron and 4% manganese in it, and that's what I'm after in this product. I'm going to mix 5 pounds of that product and mix it with 20 gallons of water in this tank. I've got roughly 20,000 square feet of turf that I manage here. I'm putting this out at 1 gallon per 1,000, but there's one more thing I'm also putting in the tank with our liquid fertilizer. We're putting in a product called T-Nex. So what does T-Nex do for us? T-Nex is a plant growth regulator. So what T-Nex does for us, it shortens the internode growth of grass. This is a blade of Bermuda. This main stem we call a stolon. And so the internodes would be the difference, the length between this blade of greenery here and this green here. It shortens that, and it makes the grass grow thicker. It discourages vertical growth, but it makes it grow out a little more, and it gets it really, really, really thick. And that's what I'm after here. I don't want to be out here mowing every day because I'm throwing down so much nitrogen and iron and manganese. What this does is make the grass thicker without pushing a whole lot of vertical growth. We're going to put T-Nex in our tank at a rate of 0.25 ounces per gallon. We're putting this out at 0.25 ounces per 1,000 square feet of turf. I want to show you how to properly mix up your tank. I think a lot of people make mistakes here. In MLB ballparks, they're using a sprayer called a Z-Max. They're real fancy. They cost tens of thousands of dollars. Homeowners can't afford that. So how do we get around that? You can buy these online, or I think I got this one at Tractor Supply for like $300 or $400. It's lasted me several years. So you can get you a little tank sprayer. This is a 25-gallon tank sprayer that I pull behind my mower. It'll work wonders for you, I promise. I've already filled up my tank sprayer to 10 gallons. I'm halfway to that 20-gallon mark that we need. Now remember, we've got that dissolvable fertilizer that we put in this bucket earlier. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and mix my fertilizer in the bucket here. And the reason I do that is because I don't want those clumps of fertilizer getting down in the bottom of this tank and clogging up the pump. It can happen. So mix your fertilizers up in a 5-gallon bucket. Those heavier solids are going to go to the bottom, and we're just going to pour off the top of the 5-gallon bucket. I'm going to do this twice. So I'm already at 10 gallons in the tank. I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. That's about 5 gallons right there. And all I'm going to do is take our 5-gallon bucket and slowly pour it in. Don't dump it in, because we want whatever remaining solids are in the bucket to remain in the bucket. Even though there's a filter in the top of my spray tank, there's a filter before it gets to the pump. I don't want to stress my pump. And so this is how I'm going to fill up my tank. All right, so I started getting some solids to come out, so I'm going to stop. One thing I do need to bring up, if we're mixing at 0.25 ounces of our T-Nex, this second round of bucket that I'm going to put into my mix here, I'm going to go ahead, put the T-Nex in the tank, and then top it off with a second bucket of 5 gallons, and that's going to get us to our 20 gallons. That's how I mix up my tanks. That's how, along with doing a post rinse, so I'm going to run tank cleaner through this when I'm done. It keeps my tanks clean. I've used this method for 3 or 4 years on this tank, and I've never had a pump issue with doing it. The next topic we need to talk about is mowing. We're going to talk about mowing height and mowing frequency. In most MLB ballparks, if they're not mowing on a particular day after the game's over, they're going out with lawn sweepers and picking up little chunks of turf that may have got kicked up, trash is on the field, stuff like that. The turf is getting taken care of on a daily basis. Us as homeowners, we don't have that advantage, okay? So I mow this about once every 5 days. I'm out here, I'm mowing this at a height of 2 inches. When I was on the field at Truist Park earlier this spring, it looked like to me they were mowing somewhere between a 1/2 inch and 1 inch height. We'll call it 3/4 of an inch. But they're also mowing every other day. Average homeowner can't do that. Put your mower at 2 inches. Also, most MLB ballparks are mowing with a reel mower, not R-E-A-L, but R-E-E-L. So it's got a blade that spins like this, and there's a blade at the bottom, and it's trapping the grass clippings in between the reel and the blade, and that's how they mow. And they get some really pretty stripes doing that. I'm mowing at 2 inches. I have a stripe kit on my mower, and all it is just a piece of rubber stripping on the back end of the deck that hangs down about a 1/2 inch lower than the deck. So when I mow, it pushes that grass over a little bit to get the stripes that we see here behind me. Speaking of stripes, let's talk about mowing patterns, mowing directions. When you look at a striped yard, the lighter colors is where the mower was going away from you. So it's pushing the grass down away from you. When the light reflects off of it, it looks lighter. The darker stripes are where the mower was coming towards you. So it's pushing those blades towards you so the light goes down in between the blades, and it doesn't look as light as where the mower was going away from you. That is how we get stripes in the grass, and that is what gives the illusion of lighter grass and darker grass. It's just which way those grass blades are bent over. Now, this latest mow that I did here, I mowed it in a 10-to-4 direction. So I like to look at the front of the house. I think of that as 12 o'clock, the road behind me 6 o'clock, and I'm alternating every cut. So if I did 10-to-4 here, the next time I cut here in about 5 more days, I'm going the opposite direction. I'm gonna go from 2 o'clock, and then I'm gonna go over here to 8 o'clock. And then the next time I mow, I'm gonna go 12 to 6. And the time I mow after that, I'm gonna go 3 to 9. And we just work our way around the clock in that direction. If you don't alternate your mowing patterns, the grass will just get longer and longer if you mow the same pattern all the time. And you're gonna have an area where funguses and bacteria have a place to gather up underneath the grass. It's not a good situation. So you want to alternate your mowing patterns. Don't constantly burn in the same stripes over and over again. So one thing we need to talk about is what just went by me right here, irrigation or watering our turf. Typical recommendations are 1 inch of water per week, but we're putting a little bit more nutrients into the turf than typical residential lots to get some of these results. So you want to be closer to maybe 2 inches per week. And I've been really fortunate this summer in the fact that I've rarely had to turn on the irrigation. We've had a lot of rain this summer, and I think I've ran the irrigation maybe 2 weeks total the entire summer. We had a dry spell. So whether you have underground irrigation like we have here, or if you're pulling out sprinklers attached to a hose, you want to make sure that you're getting adequate water. One good way to do that, if you have some cups, just lay them out in the yard, let the irrigation collect in your cup, and that's just a good way to see how much you're putting down on your turf. So we want to be, I'm going to say 1.5 inches to 2 inches per week on average with our watering. A few other things we need to talk about to get your yard looking like an MLB baseball field. We need to talk about post-emergent weed control, and then what are we doing out of summer into fall, because a lot of times the stadium that I'm mimicking this after, the Atlanta Braves, they're in postseason play. They're playing well into October. Usually don't make it to the World Series. They're wild card or division champ, and I love the Braves, but we've got 2 World Series in the past, however many, 30 times we've been to the postseason. However, let's talk about what they're doing to that grass, all right? I'm not broadcast spreading post-emergent weed control on this grass ever. With our pre-emergents that we're doing in October and then again in February, I'm getting really good control. What I do is, as I see weeds, I will spot spray with a backpack sprayer. I'm usually using some sort of 3-way product, and that's going to control all of our broadleaves. So things like henbit and clover and mimosa weeds, all those broadleaves that we can typically get in southern turfs, I'm putting that out. Occasionally I'll get nut sedges in the grass, especially if we get a lot of rain. There'll be a nut sedge here or there. Usually I can just pick those, but if the infestation gets to where there's a few dozen, I'll use a product called Certainty, and I'll spray those out as well. I don't have a problem with crabgrass because the pre-emergents take care of the crabgrass. Johnson grass is a perennial weed for me here, and sometimes I'll get a piece of Johnson grass, but we can just pull those up. That's my post-emergent weed control for this turf. Now, this turf is going to start to go dormant sometime around early October, and if you watch postseason baseball, you know that that can go almost to November the 1st. In September, if you want your grass to be green throughout the winter, what we do is we come down and put down ryegrass. We're going to put ryegrass seed down. We're going to water it in real good in the month of September, that month before we're putting down that pre-emergent. Don't put down your pre-emergent and then put your seeds down. Your ryegrass is not going to come up. Put that ryegrass seed down, let it get established, and then put down that October pre-emergent treatment. So that gives us a whole calendar year of what we're doing to this turf in order to make it look like an MLB stadium. If you have questions, please leave those down in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer those. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor, and until next time, happy gardening.